On the night of June 9th, 1912, the Moore family came home from church, put their children to bed, and locked their doors. By morning, 8 people were dead, the killer was gone, and 112 years later, no one has ever been charged. This is the Villisca Axe Murders. And if you have never heard this case before, you will not forget it after today. Villisca, Iowa, population 2,500. The kind of small Midwest town where people knew each other by name, children played outside until dark, and nobody thought twice about leaving a window unlocked at night. Josiah Moore was a respected man in that community. 43 years old, he owned a hardware store on the main street. He was active in his church. He had a reputation as a good neighbor and a decent man. His wife Sarah was 39. They had 5 children together. Herman, 11 years old, Mary 9, Arthur 7, Boyd 5, and the youngest, Paul, still just a baby. That night, 2 more children were staying at the house, Lena and Ina Stillinger, 12 and 8 years old, who had come for a sleepover with their friend Mary. 8 people under one roof, all of them asleep, all of them, as far as they knew, safe. The evening of June 9th had been a good one. The entire Moore family attended a special event at their church, a Children's Day program where the kids performed. Sarah was happy. Josiah was smiling. Around 9:30 that night, the family walked home through the quiet Iowa streets and went to bed. Lena and Ina settled into the downstairs guest room. Josiah and Sarah went to their bedroom. The lights went out. The house went quiet. And someone, standing outside in the dark, waited. The next morning, June 10th, a neighbor named Mary Peckham stepped outside to begin her morning chores and noticed something wrong. The Moore house was completely silent. Josiah's hardware store was supposed to open that morning. The chickens in the yard had not been fed. The front door was locked and no one answered when she knocked. She contacted Josiah's brother, Ross Moore. Ross came over, used his key to open the door, and walked toward the master bedroom. What he found made him walk back outside and nearly collapse on the front porch. Josiah and Sarah Moore were in their bed. Both had been struck with an axe so many times they were nearly unrecognizable. Blood covered the walls, the floor, the ceiling. Ross checked the other rooms. Every room was the same. Every child. Lena and Ina Stillinger in the guest room downstairs. 8 people. All of them killed in their sleep. Not one of them had made a sound loud enough for a single neighbor to hear. Sheriff Hank Horton arrived and attempted to preserve the scene. But in 1912, forensic science was almost nothing compared to what it is today. Word spread through Villisca within the hour, and people poured into the house. Neighbors, reporters, curious townspeople. All of them walking through the crime scene before any proper investigation could be conducted. Evidence was destroyed before it could be collected. Footprints were walked over. Surfaces were touched. By the time anyone thought seriously about protecting what was there, it was already gone. What investigators did find was deeply unsettling, not just because of the violence, but because of what it suggested about the person who had done it. Every window in the house had been covered from the inside. Clothes, bed sheets, curtains, draped over the glass so no one could see in. A mirror in one of the rooms had been covered with a cloth. A cigarette butt was found in the attic. The axe, the weapon used to kill 8 people, had been left inside the house, washed but not clean enough. Bloodstains still clung to the blade, and the faces of every single victim had been covered after they were killed. Every one of them. Josiah and Sarah. All 5 children, both Stillinger girls. The killer had moved through that house after the murders and covered every face. Some investigators believed it was guilt. Some believed it was ritual. Some believed it was something else entirely that no one has ever been able to name. No one knows. And that is the detail that has never left this case. The killer did not leave immediately after the murders. The evidence made clear that whoever did this stayed in that house through the rest of the night, moving between rooms, sitting in the dark, waiting for morning before slipping out. He had been inside that house for hours after killing 8 people, alone, and no one outside knew. The fear that settled over Villisca after that morning was unlike anything the town had ever experienced. Doors that had never been locked were locked. Parents kept children inside. People did not walk the streets at night. The town felt change in a way that did not go away quickly. A quiet, ordinary Iowa community had become the place where something happened that no one could explain or understand. Suspects emerged, several of them. The first was a traveling salesman named Andy Sawyer, who had been in Villisca that night. He was questioned and released. His alibi held and no physical evidence connected him to the house on 2nd Street. The second was a man named William Mansfield, a drifter who had been linked to other axe murders in Iowa and Illinois during the same period. His wife, his children, and his in-laws had all been killed in axe murders in different states. The same pattern, the same signature. Investigators pursued him seriously, but no direct evidence ever connected him specifically to Villisca, and the case against him could not be built beyond suspicion. The third suspect, and the most controversial, was a traveling preacher named Reverend George Kelly. Kelly had been at the Children's Day church event on the evening of June 9th. He knew the Moore family. He left Villisca on the same overnight train that departed shortly after the time investigators estimated the murders had occurred. He was eccentric. He was erratic, and at one point he gave what appeared to be a partial confession to a private detective, describing details of the crime that had never been made public, details that only someone who had been inside that house could have known. He was tried twice. The first jury could not reach a verdict. The second trial ended in acquittal. George Kelly walked out of that courthouse a free man, and the case against him died with that verdict. In 1917, 5 years after the murders, a private detective filed an affidavit claiming that Kelly had personally described the murders to him in specific detail: the positioning of the bodies, the order of the rooms, the way the windows had been covered. The affidavit was detailed enough that the detective was absolutely convinced of Kelly's guilt. The court did not find it sufficient. Kelly denied everything. The prosecution could not build a case on a denied affidavit, and that was the end. There was another angle that has never fully gone away. Josiah Moore had a significant business dispute with another man in Villisca, a rivalry that had turned personal. Some investigators believed the murders were not random at all, that Josiah was the specific target, that the killer had come for him, and that Sarah, the 5 children, and the 2 Stillinger girls who had simply come for a sleepover were killed because they were in the house and could not be left as witnesses. A targeted killing made to look like something else. No evidence has ever confirmed this theory, but no evidence has ever ruled it out either. And then there is the broader pattern, the detail that suggests Villisca was not an isolated event, but one point in a longer and darker line. Between 1911 and 1912, across Iowa and Illinois, there were multiple axe murders with nearly identical signatures. Families killed in their sleep, faces covered, windows blocked from the inside, the weapon left at the scene. Investigators who have studied these cases believe a single killer was moving through the Midwest during this period, striking, disappearing, moving on, striking again. Villisca was one point on that map, but no single name has ever been placed at the center of all of them. And then the murders stopped. Whether the killer died, was imprisoned for something else, or simply vanished, no one has ever been able to determine. The house at 508 East 2nd Street in Villisca, Iowa still stands today. It has been preserved as a historical site. People come from across the country to see it. Historians, investigators, true crime researchers, and people who simply need to stand in a place where something this dark happened and try to understand it. The house is considered one of the most haunted locations in the United States. People who have spent time inside describe a weight to the place, a heaviness that does not lift, something that stayed behind after June 10th, 1912, and has never fully left. In 2014, a man broke into the house during an overnight stay and stabbed himself. He was hospitalized. He later claimed something inside the house had driven him to it. A court convicted him of attempted murder and rejected the claim. But the incident says something about what that building still does to the people who stand inside it. Something about the weight of what happened there that has not dissipated in over a century. And when it comes to justice, there is only silence. Josiah Moore had a hardware business in a family he had built from the ground up. Sarah had a home she kept and children she raised. Herman was 11 years old and had years of school still ahead of him. Mary was 9 and had performed at church that very evening. Arthur was 7, Boyd was 5, and Lena and Ina Stillinger were 2 sisters who had come to spend one night at a friend's house and never went home. 8 people, one night, one axe, and 112 years of no answer. The killer walked into that house sometime after the Moore family went to bed. He moved through every room. He killed every person inside. He stayed through the dark hours of that night, covered every face, covered every window, sat in the silence of what he had done. And when the sky began to lighten, he walked out the door, into the quiet streets of a sleeping town, and disappeared. No one saw him leave. No one ever found him. No one ever will. Villisca, Iowa, population 2,500. A small Midwest town where June 9th, 1912 was an ordinary evening, and a family came home from church and went to bed. And June 10th changed everything, forever.